Shawna, I am so excited you're here. We got to know each other personally from a networking group, from doing the Quantum Shift podcast with you. And I've seen your journey over the years, and it is fantastic. So I'm so excited to talk about the evolution of power with you today. Welcome.
Oh my God, it's such a great honor to be back here with you, Kat. And I'm thrilled to engage in this conversation because it's such an important subject. Like, I think for everybody to really understand. You talked about it, the evolution of internal power and what that means.
Yeah, that's where I'm headed. And I think that's where I've been for so long. And so many of my clients and that I work with, and I'm sure that you do, is that internal shift of power. And I know that some of my viewers and people don't know you. Maybe you could give us a little background on your journey and how you got into this whole power.
Absolutely. So I guess I'll start with how I feel today. All right.
Okay.
So how I feel today, and I'm sorry, I literally just bad timing. I just got an eyelash in my eye.
Oh, no.
So how I feel today is so confident in myself as the person I am, as a mother, a daughter, a partner, with my business. I feel honored, humble, and have the like the great privilege of being who I am. Like, that's how I feel today. It was not this way.
Okay.
I can remember decades ago when my son was really young. I often tell my story, and I'll give a very like the nickel tour of it.
Okay.
But my journey started when my son's father lost his battle to addictions. And I knew that if I was going to continue down the path that I was on, which was not empowered at all, but I didn't know I wasn't empowered. I'll tell you this, that wasn't even a thought. Like, I really would have told you I'm empowered.
Right.
Yeah. Like, no, I wasn't. I was delusional, but I was this young, naive and innocent, now new single mom that needed to change my ways because I realized something, that if I didn't change, that I too was going to go down the same path as my son's dad, and my son would be an orphan. Like, that was the realization I had. And it was kind of scary to think about it that way, because I didn't want to put my son in that situation. And I also knew that life is inevitably full of ups and downs. And so when someone's challenged, how you respond to that challenge makes or breaks you. How that challenge is met is going to either evolve us or devolve us, cause re-traumatization and going deeper into the painful patterns that we're in. So I didn't know all that. I just knew that my son would be struggling, and that I needed to be an example of how to show up and how to do your best to meet those challenges. So, long story short, or that wasn't really short, but it was shortened in comparison to what I usually say, I decided that I needed to change my ways. And so it's funny because I often think about like who I am versus who I was. I'm not in competition with anyone else. Like, I am seeing how different I am. It's I tell myself, like, I probably wouldn't have liked myself if I met myself now, or I would see it for what it is. And I can tell you right now, like, there's always young adults that you meet and you just look at them for their potential, and yet their challenges are written all over their face, right? You can see they're struggling with whatever's weighing them down. And that's how I was. And so anyway, I began my journey, and it was in my first, I remember my first life coaching session that I had. I worked for a company I was very fortunate to have this opportunity. This company knew the importance of empowering their employees. It knew the value of training people to be their best. So this one, it was like right around the time that I had made this decision, I'm changing my life. And then this opportunity came. So this life coach talked about something that I think really stuck with me throughout this entire journey for decades. And it was the 4 stages of evolving through the stages of competencies.
Mhm.
So if it's okay, you want me to share that with?
I would love to. Before you do, I just
Yeah.
want to pause and just
Please
like
do.
acknowledge you for making that decision. You know, because that's huge. Like a young person
Right.
with so much going on, like yourself, could have easily, like you said, devolved. And
I
you
did.
made that conscious choice. You didn't know how it was going to play out, what to do, but you just made a decision, and then the opportunity flowed to you. So
It did. Yes, right there. Choice points matter.
right, they do. And so I would love for you, yes, to share with us what you learned on your choice point with this first coach, you know, in this evolution.
Nice. And it's funny, actually, before I tell you the evolution of the 4 stages of competency, I actually remember having this moment of looking out my window
Mhm.
when I was in that like stage of not knowing
Yeah.
what to do. I was so stuck. And I was like, I'm going to make a difference in this world. My life is going to be different. I don't know how I'm going to make an impact, but I know I'm going to. And I don't
Love
know
that.
why. I know that there's no proof in my life that says
Mhm.
this is possible. I just had this feeling deep inside of me, but I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the mindset.
Mhm.
I didn't have the resources. And
Right.
so the journey was long and hard.
Right. But you had the intention
Yeah.
and a small vision. It sounds like it wasn't all painted yet, but a vision to make an impact. And that's all it needs to start with, right? Those
Right.
simple steps.
Yeah.
And
Simple
then,
steps. And so when I heard this of the 4 stages, which I'll share with you guys now,
Mhm.
that first stage is being unconsciously incompetent.
Mhm.
That means we're not really aware that we might not have been the cause of our problems, but we're responsible for them.
Mhm.
Right. So it's like, so, you kind of in that victim mindset where you think life is happening to you. And that there's a term, I'm Irish, my Boston Irish. And my, the Irish family would say Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law, anything that can happen, that's bad, will happen, which is a terrible mindset, by the way. And don't adopt that. But it's really
But
what
it is
my
a programming of a mindset, right? Yeah.
exactly, it's a programming. And so I had that programming. Anything that could happen, of course, it's inevitable, it's going to happen. My car got towed and now I owe money and I don't even have the money. My phone got shut off, or blah blah blah, you name it.
Mhm.
Things would happen. I'd be like, of course, Murphy's Law, that kind of thing. So unconsciously incompetent. Now there comes a time in people's lives, the choice point period, where
Mhm.
something happens and you're forced to look at yourself.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily know what you're looking at. You're just looking, and it's like, oh, my life's a mess. What's my part in it? What do I got to do to change this? So then the next stage begins. You kind of go from beneath the surface of awareness and you move into the stage of consciously competent. So that's the second stage. So if the first stage was you were totally unaware of your contribution to your life, the second stage is painfully aware. You're acutely aware of how you continue to repeat the patterns. Now you know you're the source.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden it's worse.
It is a painful, worse stage. I've been there.
It's so painful. So painful. Yeah.
Because at
And
least
it's
when you're, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
please say what you were going to say.
When we're unconscious, sometimes I think of being ignorantly bliss, right? It might not
Bingo.
always be blissful, but you don't know what you don't know. But
Yep.
when your point, when you're consciously competent and you're aware, but you keep doing the patterns, you're like,
It's grief. You're like, oh, I keep doing this thing.
how do I get out?
Yeah. Or the famous line, I know better, right? We shit on ourselves. I should know better. I should have known better. I knew that thing was going to happen and I did it anyway. So that's when we shit on ourselves. But it's painful because you're with it. You're with all of the things instead of being dissociated from it, which is when you're unconscious, you're dissociated from it. However, your life's still painful. It's just a different experience with the pain.
Right.
So in this consciously uncompetent stage, I like everyone does in this stage, knew that I didn't have the capacity. I didn't have the like I wasn't enough. Like there's that feeling I'm not enough. Well, it's kind of, it's not true holistically, but in that moment, there's truth in it. And the reason why there's truth in it is because the solutions that we need, well, yeah, we can find our resourcing inside of ourselves. We need to learn from other people. We need to learn from others, or develop ourselves in a way that means we have to kind of fill ourselves up, fill the cup. Yeah. So I started seeking, but this was before the internet was an actual thing. I remember, and here's the other piece, and people don't, so you might know this about me, not a lot of, I shouldn't say, I don't know how many people know this about me, but I had learning disabilities growing up that were kind of not necessarily nurtured. I didn't have, I didn't really know how to read and write very well. I was very, what's the word? How do you describe it when you hear something and you try to write phonetically, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So phonetically, writing words phonetically on Google, or when it was AOL, whatever the search engine was back in the day, probably Ask Jeeves, or even before Jeeves, I think it was AOL. This was not an intelligent system. The system could not correct my spelling. So I was troubled. I was like, how do you spell these words I'm looking for?
That's funny.
Yeah. So the internet didn't help me, and I had to go to the library. So the library, for those of people who don't know, is this big building that has lots of books. And
I love the library still. I'm kind of talking, but
it's my favorite place to be, surrounded by books, which is surprising because 30 years ago, I couldn't read books very well. So I love it now. Just so everyone knows that healed, that part of me has healed. So
that's great. Love
huge
that.
difference. So I started that way. And then I started to, like maybe respond to flyers about workshops, that sort of thing. And I started to train myself. And I really went through the journey of developing myself, reparenting myself, really kind of refiguring myself, transforming myself. But nonetheless, all of that time was painful. So here's the switch. You go from consciously incompetent to consciously uncompetent, or incompetent to consciously competent.
Nice.
But here's the crazy part. It's still a lot of effort. And here's why. Because you're not skilled yet. You're just aware. So it's like the challenges come and you're actively putting effort into showing up differently, which takes a lot of energy, which is overwhelming, which is still scary to the nervous system, which feels like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, this is so hard. It's hard to change, but nonetheless, it's this journey. So this whole evolution of internal power is work. It is work. It is work. We have to show up every single day and do what we can and continue to kind of check in with ourselves. Do I need to understand something more, or do I need to anchor in what I already know? Like there's questions we ask ourselves along the way. But nonetheless, this journey of developing the self, I followed for a very long time. Very, 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 very long time.
Me too, sister.
And then all of a sudden, one day it happens. You become unconsciously competent. I can't even tell you when that shift happened. All I know is that I don't act that way anymore. And I don't need to put effort into showing up authentically, because it's like the habit of being yourself, your true self, your true empowered, sovereign, innermost being. It's almost like a built muscle. I built up the muscle of being familiar with that side of myself.
That's awesome. I love that you shared that. And I love that you said you don't really know when the shift happened, because the magic is you just keep showing up and doing it, right? We do all the energy stuff, we do all the reflective stuff, but we also have to take that action. And then someday, I remember an angel healer that I worked with back in maybe 2010. where I started really diving deeper into energy. And she gave me a practice, and I tell people the Ho'oponopono prayer, right?
I love it. That was big. That was a
Yeah.
huge one for me.
That was for me too, but that was the first time I'd heard it back then. And she gave that to me as an assignment. And it's like, or practice or whatever. And I'll go back to her and be like, it doesn't work. And she said to me, and Pat, you may have to do it 1,000 times till it goes from your head into your heart. And one day it's just going to click. And that when you describe that in this process, that you went through, I was like, made me flash to her, because it's like, you keep doing it. And one day you just break through and you don't even know it. And I think that it's beautiful, but it's also, maybe give me your opinion, tough for people to wrap their head around sometimes on this evolution trail, because they want to, if I do this, I get this.
Right.
And when I'm going to get it. It's like they want a formula, and there is a formula, but it's not like so rigid. Like, do you find people struggle with that? Like, not.
Oh, yeah. I see that people, one thing that I see is people jump around because they think this isn't working. I have to go find the next thing.
Mhm.
And they never really give it the effort that it needs to be embedded and embodied, right? Those practices, for example. Right. There's an impatience. Why is there an impatience? Because we're so uncomfortable. We're so uncomfortable with what's there. So I understand why people do that. And I also see there is in fact a formula, but it doesn't have to be linear. Like, you can kind of meander around this formula. However, this formula is on an energetic level with every single one of us. It's our own hero's journey, the heroine's journey for us. And it's this like journey of like, all right, something happens. You have a core wound, also known as a sacred wound, that literally casts you out of the garden. The garden was wherever your comfort zone was, your familiar place, where you thought you were safe, where you thought everything was good. But the truth is that we have to grow from there. And so you leave that garden from force, often, like something happens.
Right.
Feel, oh, I've been cast out. I don't belong. I'm not worthy. I'm not enough. All of these stories. And then you go through your experiences that reflect back to what you believe about yourself. And so all of those stories, or those experiences rather, are just simply showing you, well, this is what you believe. It doesn't mean to be true. It's just showing you this is what you believe. And then you kind of wake up and you realize that, oh, this thing that I've been fighting all along, this was actually me. I've been fighting myself.
That's the struggle.
The entire time, this dragon, the struggle was me. And then you're like, okay, well, now that I know this dragon has been my own struggle, then you have to develop. And so it's this journey of kind of develop. You get cast out, you go through the struggle bus, and then you realize, oh, I have to do it myself. You're still in the work phase. You're still in the, consciously making the effort. And then all of a sudden you start to develop the qualities of your innermost being. That's what sovereign reflects, our innermost queen, our innermost king, right? We're noble blood. And for a lot of people believe that we are the children of a divine creator. So it's like, of course we're royal. Of course we are kings and queens, right? And so we're going through these things in order to be able to anchor in that knowing. And that's what empowerment is. No one's doing it for you, right? People can't empower for you. However, they're with you. And that's what the helpers are. And that's what happens when you're in the underworld. The dark stuff is the underworld. And the dark stuff is hard for you when you don't know what to do, but someone else might know what to do. And this is where helpers come in. This is where the coaches come in. This is where the healers come in. This is where the therapists come in. This is sometimes where the medicine can come in, right? Different types of medicine for different types of people, situations, all of it's good. You have to decide what help you're going to ask for, and then trust that person. And if you can't trust that person or that thing that supports you, then there's not going to be like, you're not going to feel like you can do it. You're still going to be like relying on yourself at a time when you don't really feel like you really have what it takes. So it's a difficult journey when you don't have trust. just saying. So,
Can I ask you a question about that?
yeah.
How does someone begin to develop that trust in another person, like in order to stick with,
Mm,
the chosen therapist or healer or coach, or
yeah.
be able to discern maybe that isn't the right
Who to
person for
trust?
them? Yeah. I don't know if
Who to
you could speak
trust?
to that. I'm sorry to cut you off, but those are like a
Please.
lot of women that have come to me and do this work have a lot of trust issues. So,
Right.
mm,
So what's interesting is that I think that, well, I know based on the neuroscience,
mhm.
trust is actually a different location in the brain than mistrust or distrust.
Oh,
The
okay.
distrust is a real word, but it is now. So
There it is.
when we don't trust someone,
Mhm,
the part of our brain that gets activated is the protective part of our brain. We
mhm,
do not have access to the creative, trusting part of us.
mhm,
And so what happens is we're in this physical, and then it freezes the body in protection mode. And
mhm,
protection mode looks and sounds very familiar to everyone. They know it's like it's an attitude, or it's doubt, or it's judgment. First of all, you have to know when you're in resistance, you're in
mhm.
distrust. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
what am I resisting? Am I procrastinating? Am I judging? Am I needy? Am I doubt? Right? Am I confused? All of these things are signs that you're in
Mhm.
that place, that protective
Okay.
place. All right. So first of all, acknowledging when you're there. The other thing is work within in order to kind of release. It's a physiological thing.
Right.
You can't think your way out of a distrusting state.
Mhm.
You have to physiologically move the energy. So
Right.
to open up the passageways for by the way, trust, it comes from the heart, even though your brain is locked in and frozen into this place, it's about your heart. So what do we know about the heart? The heart is protecting ourselves from what? Our core
Mhm.
wounds.
Yeah.
So this whole journey of like, how do you trust someone? First and foremost, it starts with self-regulation.
Mhm.
So self-regulation is creating coherence within yourself. So you have to find harmony within yourself. This is where somatic practices come in. This is where moving meditations come in, because you
Mhm.
can't sit down in stillness and think you're going to develop physiological trust.
Mhm.
That's actually an error. I tried to meditate my way out of my trauma for 5 years straight.
Doesn't work. I think it doesn't work, especially for people with
doesn't
trauma.
it doesn't work because it's the trauma's in the body. So you got to move it from the body, and you need body movement practices targeting those places within you where what you're protecting.
Mhm.
So first you have to go within, and then recognize that trust isn't about whether or not someone else is trustworthy. Trust is about knowing yourself enough to know
Mhm.
if someone does something that's out of alignment with your values or out of alignment with integrity, you can respond to that moment in a very integrity way, in an integrous way,
Mhm.
rather. Like you can go, all right, I'm in my power, and I'm not going to let you, whether it's an insecure attachment kind of thing would cause someone to like maybe people please, for example,
Mhm.
or the power trip, the power dynamics between people. If any of those things show up, then you know that it's not a trustworthy, I suppose, or it's not the type of relationship that would bode well for a healing partnership.
Mhm.
Power dynamics don't work for healing.
Right. Oh yeah.
So yeah, so there's that. So self-regulation is key for that, to kind of be in that place. Somatic practices, bioenergetic practices, move the energy from your system, and then allow yourself to access the part of your brain that can actually connect with others. So that's the
Mm.
journey.
I
It's
appreciate
actually
that.
something
And
I facilitate. Yeah.
I find it very validating too on something that I've been working on for a year. So I appreciate that. Like a fundamental thing for people, like the back to basics and movement is one of them, because what you said, I could not meditate my way out of it either. And I need to do, even today, those moving meditations, right? A lot of breath work and movement. I can now do guided meditations or silent meditations, but I couldn't for a long time.
Right.
And it was that, oh, I don't think it works, but it was what you said. And I appreciate this, knowing yourself and going into the body, because energy moves through the body, right? And So, it brought me back home to my polarity therapy training many years ago. And I think in this culture where meditation, like silent meditation, is just pushed, which is so valuable, we forget this basic block though that so many of us need, and just to move.
Yeah.
I've had
Somatic.
some great teachers on the way. So I love that you highlighted that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's an evolution, right? That internal evolution of power and knowing ourselves.
Yeah.
And you've been one of my guides, and I so appreciate and love you for that. You do fabulous work. And I know we got off the topic a little because I asked you that question, but
Oh, that was
we're getting a little short on time, and I have like a
I
zillion questions I could ask you. Is there anything you want to share with the audience about the evolution of power, or anything else that comes to mind, Shawna?
Yeah, on the subject of having that paradigm shift, like where it's like a quantum leap that happens. Even though I said, earlier I said like I didn't even notice that it happened, which can happen. So breakthroughs can happen in an instant. Transformation happens over time.
Right.
So I've had many breakthroughs that were that like quantum shift kind of thing, where it was like I was one way and then I was another way, and it was like, woo, quantum leap, right? Like feeling the shift, but or feeling that change. But the paradigm shift, I think, comes with the commitment and dedication and devotion to whatever path you're on. So like I call it the path work. Oh, I didn't coin that phrase, but the pathwork quest is the quantum evolution and soul transformation that happens when you show up in response to the challenges that you meet on your path. And you get to define that path. Like sometimes people are on a path of love. Other times people are on a path of healing. Other times people are on a path of success. Whatever the path is, people get to define that. And then they get to show up in response to those encounters with themselves, their dragons along the way. And that, when you're working with someone who can support you through that, you're going to have those shifts, those breakthroughs much more rapidly. And you get to accelerate your path, yourself on the path. So I highly encourage people, don't do this alone. And even the people who think they don't have what it takes, the most common excuses. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the energy. That's not the reason. That is, never use those reasons as a reason why you don't do this work or get the help that you need, because you invest the money comes back to you. That's happened many times for me and others. You invest your energy, the energy comes back to you, that kind of thing. So the time finds itself. So anyway, that's what I would suggest. I know that we're out of time, so I hope that was helpful.
It was, and I love listening to you and learning from you. It's been a while since we connected, and I just appreciate your transparency, your authenticity, and all the work that you've done, like on yourself, not like the internal work, but all the studying. I mean, you have taken courses and trainings, and really what you're talking about, and you're always willing to go learn more if you notice that something, could be tweaked or finessed because you're on this evolution path. So I love that about you, Shawna, and I love how you keep it real for people too. Where can people find you if they want to know more about you and your work? I'll have a link in the show notes.
Yeah, that's it. ShawnaPelton.com. Find me on Facebook. Shawna J. Pelton, I think, is my business profile, or Instagram, quantumshift.us. That's the best kind of ways to stay in touch.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And thank you all for watching. We appreciate your time, energy, and presence. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Give Shawna a look on her page, ShawnaPelton.com. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.